How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I've finally got number one in my top favourite trucks, and it is of course the Dolphin, the Azov 5319 I think it's called, or 5139, one of the ways round. It's the Dolphin, the off-road Dolphin, and yeah, I enjoy this truck a hell of a lot. I'm always out in this truck. Many of you guessed that it was going to be number one. It was pretty obvious, especially by the time it wasn't number 3 or 2, I suppose. It was, yeah. And to be honest, there's loads of reasons why I like this truck. One, the power's great on it. I like the fact that it's got 8 wheels, so it's got like a little bit of extra grip, it feels like, over a lot of 6-wheel trucks. It absolutely just eats through the terrain pretty much everywhere. Every now and then you can like hit a bit where it'll slow down in high gear. Most of the time it'll just wheel spin then, but it's fair enough. But yeah, it just absolutely like nails the terrain, but it also feels like it's not just gliding over the top of it. Like there's a lot of weight to this truck, to be fair, but it kind of finds like a pretty good middle ground with like say like the 6-wheel trucks are, we'll call medium size. A lot of the Scouts are like small. Stuff like the Colob and the P16 are pretty massive. This is kind of like 3/4 of the way. It's about as big as you want to go without going massive. That's definitely what she said. Yeah, it's just kind of like, it bridges that gap pretty nicely, where it's got more weight than stuff, say like the Voron Grad I showed yesterday, which again I really like that truck, and as someone said, and it's true, it's not the heaviest truck, and I suppose the Taiga feels, to me at least, heavier, and like the weight's further down once you put the custom muds on. But yeah, this truck is like the crane. I've managed to lift it up on its nose and stuff, or its arse end, but generally speaking it's pretty heavy. The cranes at the minute struggle to even move this thing. But it sort of uses that to its advantage, a little bit like the P16, and that is an incredibly heavy truck, and that kind of helps it with its own grip and everything. Another big reason I do like it though, other than just nailing through all these trees, and you'll see throughout footage tonight I kind of smashed into some things on purpose, it doesn't take any engine damage or gearbox damage. Like, it is physically possible. I sort of slightly drown it in water later on, and obviously it takes engine damage then. The gearbox, I have damaged it before, but it's pretty goddamn rare. I think, oh, I don't know, I think you have to smash it up pretty bad before the gearbox is taking anything, but for whatever reason, when you just smash even full speed into a telegraph pole, you just take no damage. Which means, yeah, over a night, that's a hell of a lot of damage to avoid. It saves how much of my repair kits on the loaf and that get eaten up. I will say though, with the trollish damage at the minute, especially because this thing has got very nice high speed, like high torque, high power, you can hit the ground and have trollish moments. Other times it's fine. Like I've done a few laps of different maps tonight. Sometimes you can get halfway over the map and not take a single bit of damage. Other times you can take a left out the garage and you hit what essentially seems like nothing on the floor. And yeah, again, I still think that's more to do with the damage mechanics being a bit shit at the minute, rather than this truck. It just trolls a lot of trucks. It's just more that this is quite a fast truck, so you are going to get it more. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's like got weak suspension or anything like that. I suppose it's actually got a pretty nice amount of suspension health and everything, so in the long run it can take a bit of a hammering before it actually has collapsed suspension. Although, as I have shown you before, even when the suspension is collapsed, put it in high gear, it doesn't go through the auto gears as well once the suspension is collapsed, but in high gear it just motors along like it would regardless. And yeah, I don't know really, it's just a beast. I do definitely like this thing. Flying off there, it's no problem. I lost the cargo, but I'm not really bothered about that. Yeah, obviously it doesn't drift like the Voron Grad does. That's definitely takes the top spot as far as that goes. But yeah, just for like absolutely dominating the terrain and flying around everywhere. That's where some of the truck, in the long run, I fully get why they've balanced certain trucks, and I'm fine that some trucks are kind of more like beginner trucks that can't be like pretty damn strong and everything, otherwise it'd kind of negate the point of the game and there'd be no difficulty curve. But by the time you get to the end of the game and you've done really all the missions and I just want to go flying around, it's a bit like, obviously I wish they'd add mods, but as I've said before, and many other people have said the same, I don't want a modded truck that now has 1,000,000 horsepower. I'm not going to lie, if I had mods, I probably would make a version of the twin steer that just has ridiculous horsepower and everything else, just because I want to try and smash, like, cut new paths through forests and stuff, only for a bit of messing around. But other than that, I just add 5-10% here and there to some trucks. Yeah, but a lot of the trucks end up just feeling like, you know, there's that little bit missing, or like it wasn't missing, but then they've added kind of artificial restrictions, whether it's speed caps, rev caps, or sort of terrain caps, I suppose. Like, some trucks react pretty badly in certain terrains. Yeah, this thing feels like, I mean, not just it's my favourite truck in this game, I believe there is a good argument to be made that it's the best truck in the game, and yeah, that's fair. It's going to be between sort of this and the Taiga. I think the Voron Grad is up there, but yeah, well, I suppose those three then. Like, I could agree possibly that the situations where the Taiga overall beats the Voron for just objectively completing things, I still think the Voron has the edge on fun. But yeah, between this and the Taiga, but this thing, because it's got more weight to it and it's got 2 extra wheels, I mean, going through here, I've got a loaf on my back, but going through there was the reason it originally got the name the Off-Road Dolphin, because it just looked like a dolphin jumping up and down through the waves. Yeah, I mean, it just motors along, it smashes through everything, obviously fits the loaf in very nicely. It's very good for not rolling. And another truck in this game that is an objectively good truck, and it's sort of similar to this, is like the Azov John, whatever it's called, it's phone number 64131 or whatever it is. That is a good truck, but my problem with it is just boring. Like, there's no fun to it, there's no speed to it, it's just it's a very good truck that then is like, all the fun's been taken out of it because it's just really slow and plain, and it's like, yeah, it's decent on fuel and all, or it's got a very big fuel tank. It is decent on fuel, but it's not as, like, this gets a lot of stick for being bad on fuel. I'd argue it's just more, it's got a small fuel tank. I know, like, a similar result, but it's sort of a difference. Like, when I drove this and the Azov John up and down the runway, I got back after doing a lap and they both had used the same amount of fuel, and obviously this, I would say, overall burns more fuel, but it goes faster, so it makes more use of that fuel. But yeah, say compare like the Azov John to this truck, this I would say has got a better kind of profile. It's not got a gigantic racing sperm head. Its weight, I would say, is at least as good. It's got slightly bigger tyre. I think it's 1 inch bigger tyres. It's only an inch, but it counts. It's got better headlights. Like the Azov John, I don't think you can have like the roof fog lights on it. You can have the bumper fog lights, but to be honest, with some trucks I've been testing, I don't think overall that makes a lot of difference. I think it might have been this, it was either the review for this truck or the review for the Azov John, where I kind of spliced them side by side, or like one after the other, with doing the headlights. This thing at night, like when you turn the headlights on, it's practically like a collapsed sun. It's just whatever's in front of you is basically daylight for a pretty good area around you. And going through here now, I'm doing like Zombie Dolphin. I've got the loaf on the back. I actually switched to the loaf though and stuck a winch on the Dolphin and was just kind of making it drive through it. I did this a little while ago, trying to think what video it was. It might have been the location video for the Kodiak, because that was just like a bit further back. But yeah, I've kind of used the current to steer me a bit. Again, I've done this before, so I knew it was kind of going to head this way. But that water's pretty damn deep. There's not a lot that can go through there. Even if something has got the height to the truck to go through there, it's rare it has like the grip and everything. This thing though, as you could see, it was taking engine damage as I was going through, but it never stalled, it never did anything like that, and yeah, made it to the other side. That was, we've seen that like junk car. It was It's one of the upgrades. It might be the engine for the Kodiak. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely not a lot of stuff that is making it through there. And of course, when I've got a situation, need an emergency deployment loaf, well, we've got one. What a goddamn horse of a vehicle. I mean, these two together, in case you haven't already noticed, from the fact that they appear in most of my videos. And a lot of the time when I don't take these two out when I'm doing like some mission or something, it's because I know I've already taken this thing out loads, and it's like I try to mix the gameplay up a little bit, but there's no denying it. Like, the Loaf is out and out my favourite vehicle in the game. It's just, I think it's massively underrated, especially for the money, and it's just great fun. It's everything it does. I don't know, I have the time of my life in it, but in this game really you need a truck more, because it's like they can tow the proper trailers and it's like better with car. It just makes more sense overall. You can put like maintenance add-ons and sideboards and everything. But yeah, as you've seen, I just pop a Loaf in the back of the sideboard and go and do whatever I want with these two. I can always just jump the Loaf out the sideboard if I need to use the actual sideboard. And as you can see, it's just every bit of terrain. It absolutely eats its way through. Right now, I knew there was no... it was very slim chance that anything good was going to happen from that, but again, I didn't really have anywhere to go. I just got the Dolphin for the night, usually take a Loaf with me, and yeah, I was flying around. But you see, the Loaf's such a goddamn professional, but he jumped out, he landed on his wheels, and he's off to carry on the journey. So even if I did roll the Dolphin, the Loaf is like an extra life. That was my cock up there. I already thought I was in high range when I got there, but I wasn't. But as you can see, absolutely, again, just eats through there, knocks them trees out of the way, goes through the grey bush like a goddamn beast, and that's what I want from a vehicle. Like, sometimes I like the nuance and the messing around, and I'll go and take all kinds of random vehicles out, really, even stuff like the P16, although I think the P16 is not only an underrated truck, it's also one of my top favourite trucks that I do take out every now and then. But yeah, sometimes I do like the nuance of, like, there isn't any all-wheel drive on that, and it's a bit of a lumbering beast and all the rest of it. Obviously it has its advantages and its disadvantages. This thing, I just don't really think... One of the only disadvantages it has is a relatively small fuel tank, like I've said, but because it goes quick enough and eats through so much terrain, like, with ease, and while remaining in high gear at high speed, yeah, it just... like, it makes up for that quite a lot. You can still get bloody far across the map. I'd say, overall, if you tested this thing through various terrain, or tested all trucks through various terrains, I don't think this would be at the bottom of the list at all. I don't think it'd be at the top. There is some trucks that, yeah, have got like 350 litre fuel tank. I think as the Derry Longhorn 4520 might even have a 400 litre tank. I could be wrong on that, it could be 350, but either way, there's tanks that are getting on for, like, you know, 50-75% bigger fuel tank than this. But when you factor in the overall speed and how well they do, or how fast they can go across different terrains, this does place higher than you'd expect. And like I said, compared to the Azov John, it's just, I believe, like a more solid... It's like the Azov John's bigger brother. It unlocks later in the game. I think you can get the Azov John very early, which, for an early game truck, it's ridiculously good. Like, I'm not knocking the ability of it, it's just... And if I had that early game, like on my first playthrough, I would have been very happy and impressed with yeah, the Azov John. But to me, now I kind of know the game, I know where I'm going, I know what the terrains are and all the rest of it. Yeah, I'd pick this 100% of the time over that. So going across here to the quarry as well, well, yeah, no issues. I'm in high range. Got me Loaf. Always got to have a Loaf. But yeah, I think those, like, that extra axle, having, I suppose essentially you've got an extra front axle, I'd just call it, really, because most trucks pretty much have got 2 rear axles. This thing's obviously got 2 steering axles, and that does help as well. Like, the steering is a little bit slower on this truck, definitely. It's actually quite a nice steering angle once it's fully locked, but I also think it's helped by the fact that the front two axles steer. It's a little bit like I did in the Colob review. You're almost steering like halfway down the length of the truck with the Colob. This probably not quite halfway, but yeah, a good, like, you're steering with the front third of the truck, so once you're actually steering, its nose swings around pretty quickly. And yeah, I was messing around. I fully was taking the piss there. I knew before I even flew off. I was having a good time, and I couldn't let go of the accelerator, so I went for it. But I knew it was bad, because again, one negative as well about the Dolphin, its front bumper can dig in, and I'd actually say overall from all the trucks I've driven, I don't think it's that bad, relatively speaking, but for the truck itself, it's like, yeah, you can catch it on stuff, but there's a lot of other trucks that probably wouldn't have a reputation for having as much of an overhanging bumper, and yet still get caught as much, if not more than this, because this sits quite relatively tall, considering it hasn't got raised suspension. See the loaf? Because I fell out, I was going to jump back in the Dolphin. I messed up. I kept putting the handbrake off or something when I thought it was on, and yeah, I just rolled off. Landed on my side, but because the loaf, such a beast. It soon got back onto its wheels, and I jumped in there. I went to have another go, because to be honest, the place I chose to try and jump in to the back was just shit, because it was like everything was all on weird angles. Yeah, I moved just a bit over to the right or whatever from the way we're looking. There was a bit of a better ledge. Didn't quite land the front wheel in there. But what you do with a loaf, if that happens, just stick a winch to something on the opposite end, reverse like that, and yeah. We're good, we're in. What a goddamn beast. So yeah, I mean, as for climbing up here, not only does it like drive very nicely, and you can stick it in high pretty early. See, there's an issue with the bumper, but again, at that speed, it's like, it looks worse than it is because it's going faster than a lot of trucks are able to up terrain and like steeper angles like that. So yeah, it's kind of in fact, one good thing to say with this in one respect, and this happens with the Tiger I've noticed quite a lot, and the Voron, they're kind of a victim of their own success, in the sense, you'll notice it sometimes, probably tonight as well, if you're going along in auto, in first gear auto, up a bit of a steep hill, it'll try and jump into second gear, and then immediately realise that there's not enough revs there or whatever, and then it'll go to jump back into first, but then it does that, like, typical auto gear thing, where it, like, makes you stop for a second, and it might even do it now, I don't know. Yeah, there you go, as it jumped into second, it's actually holding it in second now. And I reckon it was probably a couple of weeks to a month after the Rift update. For me personally, this is when I really noticed it, was, yeah, they seemed, I reckon what they did was, like, quite often when you were going through rough terrain or up a steep hill, it would just sit in first gear and it'd rev high in first gear and that's it. And you'd climb along just fine. I think they purposely made it, particularly for the more powerful trucks, keep trying to jump into second sooner, because then it made it a little bit more of a troll where you keep going into second, then it drops back to first, blah blah blah, and it kind of made the concept of, say, the off-road gearbox, sorry, with the 3 low-range options, like high-low would then be a pretty good substitute. Instead of sitting it in auto, obviously once you're in the high-low, you're just going to be at that speed and it's not going to keep trying to jump through auto gears or anything. I think they purposely did that to kind of sabotage, yeah, the auto, like in the high range gearbox, because it was just so smooth and it was fine. It did, like, it negated the point of needing the low ranges, and I wouldn't say they've completely broke it or anything. If that's what they did do, I can kind of see why they tried, but for me personally it doesn't make enough of a difference. That's why I will try and get into high gear though when I'm going up a hill, and this is one of those trucks that do it very well. So does the Voron Grad, and I like that. Like, one thing I remember with the Mudrunner, as much as it, like, I enjoyed the crap out of Mudrunner for like first couple of weeks or whatever, but it suddenly dawned on me when there was a map called Bog, and it was like, it was just muddy and like really slow driving everywhere, and I went to go and replay it, and it just kind of dawned on me that all I'm going to do is hold the accelerator down and go 2 miles an hour through mud, and I'm going to do that for about 20 minutes or whatever before I even get to the garage, and then from there I can get a trailer and blah blah blah. But it was kind of like, there was no nuance. It was just, oh, the terrain is a beast and you're going to struggle to drive through it. And yeah, after a while it was just kind of like, well, I don't really want to just aim at that garage and squeeze the trigger for 20 minutes. But on the same side, to kind of defend that concept, when I'm driving along the road, I don't want to constantly keep feathering the throttle, or yeah, having to do like, not always having to do a lot of messing around. This thing, you just stick it in high, and as you can see, I crashed into a couple of things. That was more my driving than this thing, but yeah, it's just a very not just hassle-free, but it has actually genuinely got some serious engine power and everything to it. Somebody said a little while ago, and I'm not sure if this got a tiny little nerf compared to when it very first came out, again, like maybe a month or so into the game. I'm not sure. It's still a bloody solid truck regardless, but like I say, it might be some type of terrain alteration, because I did notice it a little bit on the Tayga and all sorts. So it could just be that, but I believe near the beginning of this video, I was, towing 10 pieces of cargo, like I was winching a trailer as well. And if I'm honest, well, it actually does do it, like, reasonably enough to where I would trust it to get the mission done. But if I was going to tow, like, essentially 2 4-slot ramped flatbeds, then I'd probably do it in like the Club or the P16, just something that's so ridiculously heavy that it does kind of plant itself and then claw along. But this did pretty bloody well, and at least I can have chained on this, which I can't on the Club and stuff, or on the P16, I suppose. That, I think, makes you have, it might be all-terrain or whatever it is, but yeah, you've only got like 1 tyre on that. So this is cutting across to, I'm about to go left, like where you find the TUZ. I'm heading towards a cliff again, basically. But yeah, as you can see, I set off from the garage, and if you look at my fuel, like, what is there, about a 6th gone, a 7th, 8th gone? Like, I can definitely get a hell of a lot further than this, and I've probably travelled now, well, where am I? Yeah, from the garage to the TUZ16, so I've travelled easily a quarter of the map. And you've seen other trucks going through here, you've seen this going through here slower when I'm towing stuff. But when I'm not, the thing is just an absolute train, like, just ploughing through everything. And within, like, yeah, a minute, like, I was at the ice a minute ago, I'm now across the cliff. Funnily enough, it was genuinely the first time I've ever caught the bumper there. And when I was watching it back, I think I took such a nice tight line, like, even as I was turning, I was like, oh, that's a nice one. And then I caught the bumper, and it kind of scooted me over to the left a bit, and then I was fine. But again, it was still slightly like a victim of its own speed, to where if I was going slower in the first place, then that wouldn't have happened. So it sort of looks worse, and there is times when you'll be flying along and you'll catch the bumper, but overall I wouldn't say, like, it doesn't bother me anyway. It doesn't happen enough to where it bothers me. The Club catches its underbelly quite a lot, but not, again, like, you're talking maybe a couple of times an hour. It's not like every 2 minutes or anything. I was curious after flying up here yesterday in the Voronggrad, and I'm glad. I mean, that was just first attempt, didn't roll or anything on the way up, absolutely just motored its way up there, basically did a jump off the end. And yeah, I was quite happy with this bit, because I tried to do this the other day, or no, not the other day now, it's probably like a bloody month ago or something, but I was trying to see how many rolls I could get down this hill, and I was never getting a very good attempt. And this was purely by accident. I didn't plan on doing this, but it just so happened to land essentially what I was trying to make happen a month ago. And I counted, I believe I did 11 rolls, so that's my record so far. If anyone wants to try and beat it, good luck to you. It's definitely beatable. That's what she said, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, yeah, had to nail the tree. Dolphin ain't done there though, fancied one more. I nearly went for the triple. I believe as I hit that tree I probably did catch, like, dig my bumper in as well. I'm about to fly off the cliff, but I needed a bit of encouragement, needed something to aim for. As you've seen before, I have like an addiction to flying this thing off this cliff and smashing into stuff, just because it has that combination of, it's a pretty big truck, it's pretty weighty, but it's still got that power and momentum to go pretty quick. Like, the twin steer is probably the only thing heavier than this that can have the high range, etc. But for now, at least, I know that is getting all-wheel drive, but at the minute it is just rear wheel, and this thing can motor like this, you know, through mud and other things, whereas the twin steer does, it makes up for a lot with just sheer brute power and force. But yeah, I don't know, I love flying this thing off the cliff. Like, you've always seen it in many videos before. I can't help myself. It's like, no, I wasn't quite happy. Not until I give it a damn good nailing. I've pretty much killed it by now. What we got left? About a quarter to a third of the gearbox. It's like, yes, that's the one. Didn't even touch the floor. Just rebound off. Happy days. It's a job well done. I also like, for what it's worth, while I can just notice it, the spare wheel kind of sits inside just the back of the cab, basically, so it's not one of them where it either sticks out behind your cab and hogs a bit of space for the crane or the sideboard or whatever, and it's not attached to like the side of the chassis. I don't really like the ones where it attaches kind of where the fuel tanks are. I mean, again, with the trollish damage, so I just ignore that. Even though I took some pretty good whacks, I still got like about half of my suspension left. Yeah, this is again one of the few trucks that can actually just remain in high gear and plough across this field. I'm not saying it's like there's only a couple that can do it, but there's certainly, I don't know, they can do it pretty consistently. You might get a nice little run with some other trucks, but yeah, there's not many that will just do it time and time again. See though, not only do I love going around killing trees, but takes no engine damage. That went a bit deeper than I thought. Do I even need to say it? See, this was like obviously on purpose, but flat out into this post. Funnily enough, for some reason I got 1 damage on the suspension. I'm not sure if I kind of clipped that rock just as I hit it, but yeah, flat out into a post that ain't moving anywhere. Flat out into that wall. No damage. Which, for any of you guys, like I certainly do, that enjoy the high range gearbox, you can definitely get yourself into situations where you're going to smash headfirst into a tree, a lamppost, a rock, a wall, etc. And the fact that this thing can just bounce off, and even at, again, pretty decent speed. I didn't let go of the accelerator. I forgot to add it in the other day to the TransStar video, but I glitched pretty bad into that wall. I might add it to a future video. I need to add a Hummer update, I keep forgetting. I might do a messing around video tomorrow and get a few things done. Yeah, back in Smithville, kind of cutting across again where you go to Island Lake. Obviously I've used my spare tyre by now. But yeah, I mean, it just motors through the terrain. Feels good. Feels like I've earned my way to one of the best trucks in the game, and I finally get rewarded with being able to dominate the terrain and go flying around. It feels like I'm winning against the terrain, whereas some other trucks feel like you're hanging on for dear life. And obviously I appreciate that's half the concept of this game, and I don't just want every truck to go motoring over everything, but I do think there should be a couple of trucks in the game that do. And yeah, there is. There's this, there's the Taiga, there's the Voron. Some of the others, like the Navistar, is pretty good. That's definitely got more of a classic like highway truck chassis that can hold it back a bit, whereas this, you can see, I mean, it was clearly built to be like an off-road vehicle, an off-road military vehicle. So yeah, it's pretty damn solid. I still think that the damage mechanics are trollish, but other than that, it's just a goddamn beast of a vehicle. Like I say, it is my favourite truck. Yeah, I'm always out in it, and I definitely recommend it. Not only that, one other good thing about it, for some reason it's ridiculously cheap for what it is. I think it's only like 80 grand stock, which is a bargain compared, like even stuff like the Freightliner I believe is dearer than that, and fully upgraded it's only about 120 grand, so it's getting on 70-80 grand cheaper than the Derry Longhorn, and it would absolutely wipe the floor with the Derry. So yeah, I had nothing else to do, I flew off a cliff, good times were had by all. Get yourself a Dolphin, and that's about it for today. Hope you enjoyed, thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.